Awesome. All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Rajan Anandan here from the Surge team at Sequoia. First and foremost, thank you for joining us. We hope that all of you, your families and your teams are safe. We know that it's an incredibly difficult time since almost all of us are in the midst of COVID. I know that some of you, at least in some parts of Southeast Asia, have hopefully the worst is behind you in terms of COVID, but many of us are in countries where we're still very much in the midst of COVID. So please do be safe and take care of yourselves. So we actually, I wanted to start by letting you know why we're doing this and what hopefully the reason that all of you are here. So we are doing this because at Sequoia, we have this program called Surge that I'll talk about in a minute. Hopefully all of you are here because you know a fair bit about Surge. But we are just finishing up our third cohort at Surge. And we are in the process of selecting companies that we want to partner with our fourth cohort of Surge. And we get a lot of questions about Surge. And so we thought we'd launch this series called Surge Decoded, with the intent being that we'll actually have our Surge founders try to answer the questions that many of you have about Surge. Everything from, how does Surge benefit a seed stage startup all the way through what does it take to get in and what are some of the biggest takeaways and so on and so forth. So we've got a lot of questions that all of you have submitted, and we will spend a lot of our time today having two of our amazing founders from Surge, who I'll introduce in a minute, from our current cohort of Surge, Krishnan and Abraham, answering those questions. And then we'll also take questions live from those of you that are here. But we've got a huge number of questions that came in from those of you that registered and submitted your questions already. So that's really what we're going to do today. Before we get started, I thought I'd take a couple of minutes to talk about Surge and also introduce our two incredible founders who are here. So first of all, Surge is a program that was launched by Sequoia Capital in India. Sequoia Capital has been in India and Southeast Asia for about 15 years. We launched in India about 2005 or so, and then we've been in Southeast Asia for about 6 years. And Surge itself is a seed stage program that was launched in March of 2019. So we are also very much a startup, and we've been up and running now for about 17 months. So you can also call us a seed stage startup, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that. Now, in terms of Sequoia, actually go back to the previous page. So as Sequoia was a firm, hopefully most of you are familiar with Sequoia, but Sequoia is a global venture capital firm. It was founded in Silicon Valley 48 years ago. And we've been very, very fortunate as a firm over the last 5 decades to partner with some of the most interesting technology companies in the world over many decades. So Sequoia has been an early investor and partner at companies like Google, like Apple, like Cisco, WhatsApp, LinkedIn, Dropbox, and many other companies in the US and also in our regions, right? So in India, for instance, companies like Byju's, like Zomato, like Pine Labs, like Druva, Freshworks, lots of SaaS companies, lots of consumer internet companies, lots of online, offline companies, and also in Indonesia and Southeast Asia, companies like Gojek, Tokopedia, Traveloka, and so on, Carousel in Singapore, One Championship, and so on and so forth. So we've been very, very fortunate to partner with, in many ways, some of the most important companies in our region, as well as with many of the most important and impactful technology companies that we've seen in the world over the last many decades. And our mission at Sequoia is to help the daring build legendary companies, right? So this, every one of these words is very, very important. First is help. We view ourselves as partners to successful entrepreneurs who want to build companies. Second is daring. We really want to partner with startup founders who are daring, who really want to do things that have never been done before, and also founders who really want to build legendary companies, right? We think it's one thing to build, any startup, but building a truly legendary company takes 10, 15, 20 years, and very, very few companies get there. And we think that, and one of the reasons we launched Surge is we felt that, what a seed stage company does in the very early days, right after founding, or let's say in the first year or two, is very, very important to whether a company will eventually become a legendary company or not. And as you'll hear from both Abraham and Krishnan, the huge focus we have in our 14 weeks of Surge is really around this, right? Is how does a startup in its seed stage or the formation stages of a company, put in place all the building blocks that are important for a company to become an enduring company. So that's sort of Sequoia in a nutshell. Hopefully, many of you have heard of Sequoia, and hopefully some of you have also had an opportunity to interact with Sequoia teams either in India or Southeast Asia. Now, moving on to Surge, Gina, if you go to the next slide, so Surge aims to engineer rapid early progress for startups by enabling disproportionate access to capital, talent, network, and also bring to bear decades of company building experience we have as a firm. So as I mentioned, we launched Surge in March of 2019, so call it about 17 months ago. And over the last, call it year and a half, we've had 3 cohorts of Surge. So Abraham and Krishnan are part of our 3rd cohort, where we have 15 companies. We've had a total of 52 companies. We had 17 companies in our first cohort, 20 companies in our second cohort. We have 15 companies on our 3rd cohort, and our 4th cohort launches in November. And we are currently in the process of partnering with companies for our fourth cohort. And we have 110 founders, and they come from many countries. So we've had startups, obviously a large number of startups from India, quite a large number of startups from Indonesia, quite a number from Singapore, as well as several from Vietnam. We've had a startup from Bangladesh. Our focus really is startups that are from our region, defined as India, Southeast Asia, and Southeast Asia, South Asia and Southeast Asia, that are either building for their respective countries, building for this region, or from this region, building for the world, right? So we've got a large number of SaaS companies, for instance, dev tools companies, SME tech companies that are actually from, let's say, a country like in India or a Singapore, Indonesia, but are really focused on building for the world. Our program really combines 4 important aspects. The first is capital. So for every company that we partner with, we invest $1 to $2 million before they start the program, and that gives each company enough capital to really focus on company building and not focus as much on fundraising, right? Second, we have a 14-week program that both Krishnan and Abraham will talk about, where we used to actually meet offline, where before COVID we met. We spent 1 week a month in different parts of the world. We started in Singapore. A month later, we went to Bangalore for a week. A month later, we went to China for a week. And then we went to Silicon Valley for a week, and we ended in Singapore. But obviously with COVID, none of us are traveling, and we took it entirely online. And I must say the online experience, hopefully we'll hear from Krishnan and Abraham, has been quite interesting. And instead of meeting for a whole week, now what we do is we spend 1 day a week. It's been Thursdays, all day on Thursday. We start at 9 a.m. India time, 11:30 Singapore time, and we go till about 5 p.m. or 6 p.m. India time. And we focus on different aspects of company building, from how do you have a mission that's meaningful, to how do you make sure you have product market fit, to how do you build product teams, to how do you scale out engineering teams, how do you think about sales, how do you think about brand building. So we take every important aspect of company building and we go very, very deep on each of those aspects. So that's sort of the second part of it. The third part of what we try to do is we try to bring to bear the best expertise that we have within Sequoia, as well as our mentor network, for one-on-one mentoring and providing the support to the companies in whatever areas that they need, right? Some companies, would like help in many areas. Some companies would like to focus on 1 or 2 areas, and that's totally okay by us, right? So we are very much a founder-centric program so that's the third part of this. The fourth part of it is really, we have a group of mentors that our founders have access to, and again, some of them access our mentor network quite extensively, and others don't, and we leave it entirely up to the startups. And finally, for our Surge startups that need to raise their next round of capital, we have something called Upsurge. In fact, for this cohort, Upsurge is coming up in September 22nd and 23rd, where we bring 35 to 40 of the leading Series A investors from India, Southeast Asia, other parts of Asia, as well as the US, and we set up one-on-one meetings with each of the companies. And most companies will meet between 10 and 15 investors. And it's both, the startups tell us which investors they want to meet, and the investors tell us which startups they want to meet. And what we find is that process helps significantly accelerate and streamline what would normally be a rather long process to actually raise Series A. So that's really what the program is. We've been very fortunate, as I said, to have 52 startups already at Surge. Surge, we invest $1 to $2 million in each company, and then we invest a little bit pro rata on top of that whenever the company raises their Series A round. We've invested $100 million into the 52 companies in total. But actually, on top of that, our Surge companies have raised over $250 million in follow-on financings, right? Fundraising is certainly not the objective, but at least for the companies, Surge companies that have needed to raise follow-on capital, we're very humbled to see, I think, the investor interest that we've gotten from other investors. The other important thing to highlight here is that 80% of our Surge startups have co-investors. So we've structured Surge as an open architecture model. So what we mean by that is we co-invest and we partner very, very extensively with other investors, right? So whether they be venture funds, whether they be seed funds, whether they be angels. So 80% of all Surge companies, so of the 52 Surge companies, so over 40 of them have had other co-investors, right? The tier one venture capital funds, the leading venture capital funds in countries like Indonesia, India, Singapore, as well as large groups of angels that have been a part of it. And then also in the follow-on fund at Upsurge, the companies that raise financing, they get a lot of interest from, as I said, 35, 40, in some cases over 50 investors from our region. So that really is what Surge is. Hopefully all of you are here because you at least know something about Surge. But what we're going to do today is, instead of us telling you about Surge, we're going to have our founders talk about Surge. So with that, Gina, if you go to the next slide. So today, as I said, we have two of our amazing founders. We've all had the privilege and excitement of working with both Abraham and Krishnan. Abraham is the CEO and co-founder of Hangry, and he'll tell you more about Hangry in a minute. And Krishnan is the CEO and co-founder of Bukukas. They're both in our current cohort of Surge. Actually, if you go to the next page, Gina. Yeah, let me maybe tell you a little bit about Abraham. I'm going to have him introduce himself in a minute. But Abraham is a serial founder. Hangry is a very, very exciting cloud. It's a food tech company. There's a space called Cloud Kitchens. He'll talk more about it. They're actually developing their own food brands. So these are brand new food brands. They're made in Indonesia. They're for Indonesians. They've got this incredible aspiration of what they'd like to do. And they started this company recently. And then before this, Abraham was a co-founder of a company that they built and actually sold to Ovo. So he'll talk more about that. So he's a serial entrepreneur. And Krishnan, if you go to the next page, Gina, is the co-founder of a company called Bukukas. It's a super interesting SME tech company. So what they're doing is they're building software for very small businesses in Indonesia. As all of you know, there are over 50 million small businesses in Indonesia. Most of them use very little software, and they're building their first product that they've launched that is absolutely on fire, is a product that very small businesses in Indonesia use for financial bookkeeping and keeping track of their businesses. And Krishnan will speak more about this business. Krishnan is also a serial entrepreneur. He's been in Indonesia for, I guess, 7 years, and he'll say more about that. He moved to Indonesia with Lazada. So he knows the country very well and has been there for a long time and has seen sort of the e-commerce market go from nothing to what it is. And we are both thrilled to have both of them join us. So with that, now, Gina, you can take off the slides. Welcome, Abraham and Krishnan. Thank you for both. First of all, thank you for being a part of Surge. It's truly been an honor and a privilege for our Surge team to have Bukukas and Hangry as part of Surge. What I'd like to do is maybe I'm going to start off with having each of you provide a few opening comments, and then we're going to get right into the questions that we've got from the attendees. And what I'll do, everyone, is maybe spend the first 30, 40 minutes taking questions from the questions that you have submitted, but then we'll open it up for questions from those of you attending that want to ask questions. If you have questions, please do put them in the Q&A tab as well. So with that, let me, maybe I'll start with Abraham. Let's open it up to you and have some opening comments. Tell us a little bit about you, about Hangry, and also, tell us a little bit about why Surge and what you guys have gotten out of it so far.
Sure. So thanks, Rajan, for the very generous introduction. So hi everyone, I'm Abraham from Hangry. So Hangry is a virtual restaurant company. Why we chose the name Hangry is for everyone in the team to constantly be reminded that our customers are always hungry and angry. So our food better be really good and reach very fast. We own diverse kind of brands from Japanese beef bowl all the way to Korean fried chicken. And as of now, geographically, we exist in Indonesia, but we have an aspiration to go global. So for those not in Indonesia, stay tuned. Um, I think Rajan definitely spoke very highly of me, but I think at the bottom of it, startup is a very humbling journey. It's something that where every day we get reminded that we are very powerless and that the only thing we have to do every day is to learn more and more things. So I think on your question, Rajan, on why I personally decided to go with Surge is because I think along the time when I was deciding to do this another startup called Hangry, I was looking to fundraise from different kind of investors. So I had a chat with a lot of investors, but I guess at the end of the day, I believe that there are two criteria that define a good investor. And number one is whether or not that investor is a champion stamp, and number two is whether or not the founders that they've invested in speak highly of them. And unfortunately, in this region, there are not that many choices of investors that fit the bill, checking the two checklists basically. And Surge obviously is the one of the couple names that fit the bill, and that's the reason why in the end we decided to go with Surge.
Terrific. Thank you, Abraham. Krishnan, over to you.
Hi everyone. Thanks, Rajan. For me, so I'm Krishnan. I'm originally from India, like Rajan said. I came here around 8 years ago, 7-8 years ago, when I moved here for Lazada as actually as an intern back then. Obviously, I love Indonesia. I just love being here. Over the years, I worked with a lot of people on the slide that people Can you?
Hey, Krishnan, I think your net. Yeah, we couldn't hear what you were just saying, Krishnan.
Sorry, is it?
Yeah, that's better. That's better. I think maybe be close to the mic.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, over the years I met a lot of merchants, a lot of people that I was working with, and I realized that if you look at Indonesia, everything that is built is really for Jakarta. That's how it's evolving. But over time, I felt like it was a good time to start building something for everybody else, right? So that was the origin of Bukukas. We went deep into the merchant's behavior and trying to make
from there, breaking up, Krishnan. You're okay, and then you break up. I don't know whether maybe you have to stay very, very close to the mic or something about like how far you are from the mic, I think.
Show me an error. Is it better now?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry for that. So I was saying, so over the years, I worked with a lot of merchants, and we decided to build Bukukas. It was a very simple application for merchants, people especially outside Jakarta, right? And give them a very simple way to know where they stand in their business and always stay in control of their money. And from there, build out even more services for them to expand and start becoming digitized, because that's really how the future looks like, right? So that's what we do at Bukukas. The reason I joined Surge was more often than not serendipity. I wasn't at that point looking for Surge. Is something I met Akash, I met people from Surge, and when I spoke to them, and even before there was a decision for us to work together, the Surge team was already giving me advice on maybe you should do this, maybe you should do that. That might be better for you. And I felt like, okay, this must be fun people to work with. So that was really the tipping point for us. Where we felt, okay, I want to work with people who want to build this business with me. So that's how we ended up with Surge.
Okay, terrific. Thank you, Krishnan. Hey, Pankaj, we can all hear, so it might be something with your audio. Okay, Pankaj, I'm glad you can hear. All right, so let's now get into questions. So I'm going to take the first question from Adi Halim, and maybe Abraham, you can take this first, and then we can go to Krishnan. As a CEO of a founder at seed stage, to what extent does joining Surge help you? And maybe you can also add to that to say, how has it helped you? What are some tangible ways that Surge has helped you? Abraham, maybe you can start.
Sure, sure. So I think if I were to reflect on this question, I think one thing that Surge really helps is in terms of speaking the necessary truth to our head when no other people would, I think. The reality of building a startup is that as founders or as co-founding team, very often we might be very biased and be blindsided about what actually matters. And we're very busy every day, so we may think that we're being productive, but if we're going to the wrong direction and no one is telling us that it is the wrong direction, then we're heading to destruction, right? And I think Surge definitely plays a very active role in speaking that truth to us every time we talk to them. One example I can pick is how in my previous experience doing previous startups, very often when I met with investors, they would try to give me advice, and the advice would be different depending on who's talking to me. And they would say things like, "Oh, all you need is more traction." And then when you have more traction, and then you come back to me. So I think this is something that I guess most of you can resonate with if you've spoken to VCs before. So what I perceive from that conversation is that the truth that I need to focus on is to get more traction. That's all, right? But is it really the truth? Actually, it may not be the truth, right? Because even if, let's say, we make a lot of traction, if the unit of economics never works, then it's not going to be a successful company. So Surge brings up this truth every time we meet up with them, telling us things like how at the end of the day, customer love is what matters. Because if customer doesn't like our product, we may be able to get traction by giving a lot of discount, but eventually our product wouldn't win the market because customers don't love our product. And to your last question, Rajan, that's one of the things that the Surge team has been telling us since the beginning. That I think in the beginning they saw that we're very ambitious, we have high targets, but we didn't think about customers enough at that point. And they've been giving us those wake-up calls, slapping our cheeks, right and left, telling us that we've been focusing on some of the good things, but we didn't pay attention to the most important thing, which is the customer themselves.
Got it. Terrific. Thank you, Abraham. Krishnan?
Awesome. So, I mean, I thought about this and think of my views, Rajan. The way I felt is exactly like how this Ask Me Anything is happening for us. Surge was a one large ask us anything team, but on top of it, they would also help us execute that question. So anything and everything, whatever problems we had, and we still do, we just go to Surge team and they're always there to help us. A lot of examples, like literally it can be anything. It can be, related to capital raise. It can be related to us as founders focusing on the right things, exactly like how Abraham said. It can be about tech stacks and the tech process decisions. We had issues finding SEO and how do we set our SEO strategy. There was help there. Hiring, of course, left, right, and center, a lot of help. Also preparing yourself personally and professionally to build a proper company, right? So it really depends on what you ask, because there's always someone to help you with something and not just give you advice, which is normally very free, easy thing to give, but they actually help you execute on that advice. So that's been my experience.
Terrific. And maybe as Abraham said, the big thing that they maybe possibly have changed after having been in Surge is, doubling down on customer love, right? Balancing sort of growth with obviously unit economics and doing it with an obsession towards customer love. What's been the one or two things that have changed now that you're 4 months post Surge into the Surge experience, Krishnan, for you and Lorenzo as co-founders and your teams? What are the one or two things that you're doing differently today? Because it's one thing to ask for anything and get lots of perspectives, but as you said, you got to do something differently, right? So tell us a little bit about that.
Totally. So when we started off Surge and me being me, you want to do it all, and you want to do it all right now, and you want to do it all fast, So that's how we walked into Surge. And we really had some good learning sessions, be it one-to-ones, be it through the sessions which were being taught to us or taken us through. And the most important thing that we did was to focus. So and it starts from me. developing the ability to focus, and it obviously translated across the organization. So we actually even had something that we call Project Rebirth, where we really refocused the whole organization, put it together, and really focused on one thing that mattered the most to us, which was to crack our product. So 4 months ago, we were far below in where we should have been, and now we are like 2x bigger than where we should be. So that is totally to this one single thing, which is at our mind we were advised and helped to focus, and what we're focusing on, of course, the customer, but how we're serving the customer, the product, right? So it all went back to that single point, and make it work and make every single micro decisions there correctly. So that was for me by far the number one change.
Okay, terrific. So there's a question from Ario. I'll take some with chat as we go. What's the percentage of startups that are expected to surge in general per cohort? So Ario and everyone, so we have 15 to 20 companies per cohort. We'd prefer not to go beyond 20. We had 20 companies in our second cohort. First cohort, which was last year, was 17. The cohort that Abraham and Krishnan and I, we have 15 companies. So you should think of as 15 to 20. It's a small cohort, and which is why all of us get to spend a lot of time with each of our founders. Okay, let's go to the next question. Is 5-week training will be virtual or offline? And if offline, which location will be? I would like to know if it is free or paid training and support. Yeah, so that's a good question. Maybe I'll take that. So firstly, it's not 5 weeks. It's actually a 14-week program. And think about Surge as capital, a 14-week program, which we think of like a founders academy, and then extensive sort of mentoring support, company building support on whole set of things that both Abraham and Krishnan can talk about, right? So it's 14 weeks. It used to be that we had it offline. As I said, we used to spend 1 week a month in a different country. We started off in Singapore. We spent a week. A month later, the startup founders obviously went back to their home countries. A month later, we got together in Bangalore for a week. But now it's entirely online. So you don't, and Surge 4, which is our next cohort that starts in November, is also going to be entirely online. And by the way, so this is part of, when you become a part of Surge, you get investment from us, which is $1 to $2 million, and you get that before you start the program. And then after that, Surge is, the only thing that we ask for is that you actually do come to Surge sessions, right? We strongly encourage that, etc. Okay, the next question is from Sagar. How much and in what ways does the Surge founder community helpful? What kind of assistance help does Surge provide post the 16 weeks time frame? And Upsurge is over. So maybe Upsurge hasn't happened. I mean, both these founders have just finished up their program. Upsurge is in September. But maybe, Krishnan and Abraham, you can talk a little bit about are there ways in which the Surge founder community has been helpful to either you guys or your teams? Krishnan, do you want to take that? I don't know. One of you can take that.
Sure, I can do that. So, since we're on the specific topic of Upsurge, Surge obviously has a lot of great founders that have done the course before us, or on the course, but done the program before us, and obviously the folks that I'm doing it with now, right? So it's a very normal setting that we all end up speaking with different sets of investors, be it for Upsurge or without, and obviously a lot of founders, like I help introduce because in many companies there are co-investors. It's not Surge always, right? So if somebody is on my cap table, I have a great relationship, I might introduce them to Abraham if he's interested. So there's a lot of just purely on the fundraise topic alone, there is a lot of help that you get from other founders. But that's not just that. There's also a lot more to it, right? Like, what is the right strategy? Are we doing the right things? Can you fall back? Introductions just for partnerships, this, that. So just being around other great founders and also taking help from the folks before has just always been one of the number one attraction in this whole thing.
Yeah, and Abraham, I don't know whether you want to add anything to that. I don't know to what extent you guys leverage the Surge community, either your peers who are part of this cohort or previous founders.
Yeah, I think in general, like what Krishnan shared, being around great founders is a very inspiring thing. So in our weekly search session, we would get some founders sharing about their company progress, and I think a lot of these things are very inspiring to us. So I think even though not every startup is doing the same thing, I think founders in general go through the same cycle, encounter the same problems. So there are a lot of cross learnings that we can obtain from learning about other companies and what other founders are going through. I would say that one particular example that is very tangible for us is how at Hangry we were thinking of building our own internal academy to train our kitchen staffs. And it's very coincidental that actually one of the founder in our search cohort runs an academy. So we had a session with her, and we learned the best practices of how to run an academy. And this just doesn't stop there, because there are a lot of other learnings such as about branding and whatnot from all the experts in the group.
Okay, terrific. All right, let's keep moving. Moving to the next question. How diverse are the mentors and advisors of Surge? How often do they interact? Is it available even after the program? I don't think these two can answer whether it's available even after the program, but maybe Abraham and Krishnan, you can talk a little bit about how you've leveraged either be it the Surge team, how accessible they've been, what kind of help they've got, or even others in the Sequoia family or the broader Sequoia mentor network. Maybe each of you, I don't know who wants to go first. One of you can start, and then the other one can add to that.
I can go. So, I mean, to answer, it's very diverse, right? I mean, the beauty of the people we work with, or also the beauty of the topics we work with, are not different people have different skills. It's just in the search program alone. Every week is a different topic, right? So one week is somebody who's an expert in product, some week it's about design, and these are different folks. We also have something called office hours, so we can actually, after the session, schedule one-to-ones with these people, and they really focus only on your business, right? And this has been incredible help. We've done it for design, we've done it for tech, like very specific ones. So that has been incredible help. Without doubt, and each of them is an expert, right? Like Rajan said, I don't know how it will be in future, but I can tell you the feeling I get is all of these people are still available. And then there are things outside, which is, let's say, PR or communication, and all these we have dedicated. I mean, the search team has dedicated people on it, and I've rarely ever had people proactively trying to help us, even when you don't. From that experience, I know that relationship will only continue even after Surge.
Great, thank you, Krishnan. Abraham, you want to add to that?
Yeah. I think Krishnan has probably mentioned it all. I think we have access to different kind of experts depending on what we need. One example I would pick is how we had an office hour session. That's what we call a side meeting. We had an office hour session with some of the search team who are specialized in branding, and that session actually was very impactful for us. So not only did we learn, it's different listening to people who have done it before with reading conceptual theories from the book. So that session actually opened our mind and enabled us to dream bigger in terms of how we should envision our branding to be at Hangry. And actually, our conversation with Rajan about OKR, I remember that one time where we had a meeting about OKR was really impactful to us too. And by the way, Rajan is the kind of guy where everyone at Google would feel very privileged to work with, and this is the kind of people we have access to when we are in search. So it's a privilege for sure.
Great, thank you, Abraham and Krishnan. Okay, let's go to the next one. How does Surge help in finding you the right people? Does help? I guess the question is, does Surge help you with hiring? Yeah, that's the question. I don't know to what extent Krishnan and Abraham, you guys have leveraged the hiring capabilities that we have, be it for engineering or other things. I don't know whether one of you wants to comment on it. Otherwise, I can talk to it.
I can. Actually, today I had a call with Surge team's hiring expert person to help me find more engineers on top of the ones that we got. So it's a very live experience for us. I mean, first and foremost, to all founders out there, hiring good people in your team is your own problem. You cannot outsource that to someone else. So you have to hire. Of course, people help you in that process. Surge exceptionally did for us and still does, like I mentioned. So So it could be direct candidates that from their own network that they know, which is obviously a large network, or it's finding good headhunters who have access to very good candidates. Then the other piece which I felt really helpful is, see, when you speak to a candidate, you have two scenarios, right? On one scenario, you want to validate if your instinct and your review on this guy is good enough. Here, people from Surge have stepped in and interviewed people for us with that mindset. Some of the times, the candidate is too good to join your company, possibly, and you want help to convince him that this is the right place to join, and you are an early stage company, right? And you might obviously not be paying exceptional salaries that big firms pay, etc. Right? So there also, that's a different hat, but I've also taken help from Surge team to really have a chat with them to translate the fact that we are the right place to come, right? And we have hired some really exceptional people in the last 4 months, and Surge played a big role in that.
Great, thanks, Krishnan. Yeah, I think especially in Southeast Asia, what we find is for more sort of tech-oriented, right? So, for instance, if you look at Krishnan and Bukukas is really a software business. Abraham is building a digitally enabled brand business, right? And what we find is in Indonesia, especially those of you in SEA, be it Indonesia, other places in Southeast Asia, hiring engineering talent is very hard. So we actually have a whole capability where we help our founders build out their engineering team. So we have a company in Vietnam, for instance, in a previous cohort, where the CTO and the first 30 engineers all were, the Surge team actually helped them hire that team. So again, right, the simple way you should think about it is, whatever the priorities of the company are, to the extent that we can, right, we will help. We'll bring sort of all the capability that we have to bear to help with that. Okay, so let's take one more question on this, and then we'll go to the application process. What is it about Surge that you wish someone had told you before joining the program? Is there anything that's, maybe another way to put this is, was there anything that surprised you? And maybe I'll start with Abraham this time and then go to Krishnan. What do you wish that you had known before you joined the program? Or maybe put another way, right? If you were going to go through it again, what is it that you wish you knew now?
I think so. When I was joining Surge, the expectation I had in my mind was that it's going to be a condensed learning about building a startup, right? But apparently, I think they exceeded themselves on that part, where not only did we learn about how to build a startup, actually they were teaching us about how to build a company that is enduring and lasting beyond even our generation, right? So I would say that one thing that I wish I had known is to be ready for an information overload. I would say it's not only information, but information and inspiration overload throughout the 14 weeks. But the good thing is that it's an online program. Like Rajan mentioned earlier, it used to be a physical program offline where people would go to different cities and be in the session for one whole week. The good thing is that now it's once a week, at least in our cohort, so that we have the Friday to Sunday to sort of like digest and marinate on all the new things that we got to learn during the Thursday.
Yeah, I'll jump in there. Exactly the same point. I wish I knew it was so intense. I could have obviously spent some time more preparing. But so the first couple of sessions, you're like, holy shit, what happened now, right? But yeah, so that's something good to know for people as well.
Rajan, you're on mute.
Yeah.
Okay, let's now move to some questions on applications. What kind of sectors do you support? Do you talk about what kind of sectors? Yeah, so I think maybe I'll take this. Look, so the simple way you should think about Surge is, and it goes back to Sequoia, right? Sequoia invests in technology and technology-enabled businesses. So if you just look at, Abraham and Krishnan, right? One is a SME-focused software company that has obviously a vision of longer term being much broader than that. And Abraham and Hangry are really a cloud-first food brand, right? They're trying to build a cloud kitchen-focused sort of brand. So if you're building a business that is a technology company, right? Be it a software company, a consumer internet company, or a technology-enabled company. So if you look at just Indonesia, since both of our founders are actually from Indonesia on this particular call, right? We've had companies that have ranged from Chili Belly. Chili Belly is a social commerce company that's focused on fresh, Indonesia's first sort of fresh focused social commerce company. We've had Bobo Box, which is a sort of a micro capsule hospitality company, right? I don't know whether how many of you have stayed at a Bobo Box. We've had Rukita, which is a co-living company. We've had Story. Story is a beauty commerce company now. It's it started off as sort of a beauty sort of content site that's evolved very quickly into a beauty commerce company. And then in places like India and Singapore and other places, we've had a whole range of companies from software as a service companies. So for instance, especially in India now, we're seeing a large number of software as a service companies. In our current cohort, we have 10 out of the 15 companies. We have 11 companies are B2B, a combination of enterprise software, developer tools, SME SaaS, SME tech, like Bukukas, for instance, as well as B2B commerce. So for instance, we have a company called Tuxi, which is the leading, pharmaceutical focused B2B commerce. So what they do is they go from sort of OEM to pharmacy retailer, right? They're doing a B2B commerce play sort of thing. So it's a broad range of companies. And again, what we focus on is really, incredible founders, awesome founders who are building businesses that we think are going to become very, very large, enduring companies, right? So our most important focus that we put is really on the founding team, really trying to understand, this is a founding team that is got deep insight into what they're building. Are they focused on it for the right reason? Do they have the ambition and the mission to build a very large sort of company, right? Okay, at what stage should a company be eligible? So actually, between Krishnan and Abraham, I think you have two stages. So maybe Krishnan, you can talk a little bit about at what stage did Surge decide to partner with you? And by the way, what we do is we'll decide to partner with you. We'll get the paperwork done. We'll wire the funds, and then in some cases, it'll be 3 or 4 months before the program starts, right? So our next program starts in November, but we've already decided to partner with 9 companies. So Krishnan, maybe you can talk a little bit about at what stage were you, and then Abraham, you can talk about what stage were you, and that will give you a sense of the spectrum of companies that we have.
So we launched Bukukas on the 1st of December publicly. We had our conversation with the whole Surge team. We had a first conversation with Surge team. The first ever conversation was in October, but that was more a catch-up sort of conversation. We had with the conversation with the whole Surge team on probably a week before launch, so late November, and we had our investment in like first week of January, and there were 2 weeks of vacation in between, or sort of not the prime activity time. So we were that early. The Surge program started March, right? Like mid-March or something like that. So that's been our experience.
Yeah, so there you go, right? So that's very, very early. And we have quite a number of our companies that are actually even pre-launched. So in our second cohort, we had 20 companies. 6 of them were pre-launched. They didn't have a product. They were not in market when we actually decided to partner with them. And Abraham, do you want to talk a little bit about, you guys are much further along, where you were when we were fortunate to partner with you, Abraham?
Yeah. So we started the company in September 2019. And I remember that we opened our first cloud kitchen in November 2019. And our first conversation with Surge team actually happened around the same time, so November 2019. And at that time, we already raised our angel round, and we were already in conversation about some venture capitals about raising our seed round. So that's when eventually, I think around end of November, the Surge team gave an offer to us, invited us to be part of the Surge 3 cohort, and then everything happened pretty fast after that.
Yeah, great. Yeah, so again, right, it's never too early to apply to Surge. I think if you've got an awesome founding team and you have a very specific problem that you're trying to solve, you believe the market's big enough, we'd love to hear from you. Obviously, if you've launched, then your metrics, we will look at your metrics as well, just to sort of get a sense of, and the most important thing that we look for that Abraham talked about is customer love, right? Is this a product that customers are beginning to love? And in the early days, there's some early signs that we can look for. Let's go to the next question for our founders. For both Krishnan and Abraham, can you share what are the elements of your pitch at seed stage that made you successful to get into for Surge? I don't know whether you guys know this, but at least tell us what you think made it work. Maybe Abraham, we can start with you. What was in your pitch that you think was exciting for us?
To be honest, I don't think the pitch worked because I remember leaving the first meeting feeling that I should have learned pitching better. So I remember that I was just sharing about our dream to build a virtual restaurant, and I remember that I think the search team was listening without giving any comment, and at the end they gave a very long feedback about the pitch, which was that they sensed that we are very ambitious, we have a huge dream, we want to grow fast, but we don't think about the customers enough. So that's where we ended the meeting. And so after the meeting, I felt that okay, next time I know how to pitch better, which is to speak more about the customer, and I have to internalize first myself on why I didn't even speak a lot about the customer. So that was my reflection from the meeting. So I don't know what actually worked, Rajan.
Yeah, look, and maybe, yeah, I remember that pitch very clearly. I think again, right, what we look for is amazing founding teams, right? And Abraham and his co-founders had, number one, experience where they've actually built businesses before. Very, very passionate, very experienced. Number two, they were very passionate about food. I mean, Abraham's actually a foodie. I should have mentioned that in his introduction, and that came out in spades, right? It's very hard to be a food entrepreneur if you don't like food. Like for instance, if I was to launch a company, I might launch an ice cream company because I love ice cream. So I think that came out. Third, look, they had actually launched, and they had very good traction metrics in terms of in terms of growth. They clearly demonstrated they can move very fast. And the other thing we felt was that, look, this is a team that would take feedback, right? Because we did follow up. I think Klaus followed up, who was on our team, followed up with Abraham and team. But really, look, so we look for, as I said, two things, right? Awesome founding teams, and we look for big markets where we think there's a clear need and a team that's going after it, right? But also what we realize is at seed stage, look, it's okay not to be okay, right? There's no perfect seed stage team. Perfect seed stage team is usually a team that has already gone public, and that takes about 10 to 15 years, right? All along the way, you're getting better at lots of different things. Okay, so Krishnan, let's go to you. What do you think worked in your pitch?
Yeah, I mean, so in our case, it was one thing we know it worked is our obsessive passion on this problem statement. That's for sure resonating. It still does resonate, and that was picked up very early, very fast by the Surge team, because we didn't have much to show other than a dream and this obsession. And I think what helped for sure is that problem statement was a large problem in a large market. So that definitely aligned Serge and us in terms of, okay, this could be something good if we pull it off, right? So because very early in that instruction sense of it, and for sure the fact that we had a very good early team who had also worked with each other for a long time and have been building startups together. So those were really the top three things that I thought would have worked. But Rajan, is up to you to tell me what worked. Yeah.
No, absolutely. Look, so I think, look, it all keeps coming back to the team, right? So much like I talked about Abraham and his co-founders, Krishnan and Lorenzo have worked together for a long time. They understand how to build a company. They were deeply, deeply passionate about this space. And what we really liked about them was they had lots of great insights, right, about the problems that SMEs face. They had insights about how they wanted to address it. And then if you recall, Krishnan, I think we met you twice, right? We met you you probably met Akash many times, but at least I was in 2 meetings where we met you. I think the first time we met you guys, you might have just about launched or whatever. And they had a model that they were trying at the time. We gave some feedback, and then what was amazing was I can't remember how much. Maybe it was a month or 16 that can execute. Because look, building a startup, a lot of it is actually, can you execute quickly, right? And obviously do it the right way. But again, right, we love the team, we love the insights. It was a big space. It was a large unsolved problem, right? And then, the more time we spent with Krishnan and Lorenzo, we really got very excited about the fact that this is a team that really was obsessed with solving this problem, right? And this notion of obsessiveness is something that is very, very important. Okay, let's go to a couple more questions. Maybe I'll take these very quickly. During the initial process of reviewing the Surge application, what do you look for in particular? So as I said, right, look, we look for 3 things. If you're a pre-launch company, we're looking for 2 things. We look for what we call founder market fit. We ask this question of why is this team's unique right to win in this market, right? So for instance, is this a team that's been working on, similar sorts of things for a long time? Is this a team that's deeply passionate about this problem? And actually, one of the things we look for is this a team that has deep insights into the problem that they're trying to solve, right? We have to say, oh, wow, that's really interesting. Oh, wow, that's really interesting. If we don't say that 2 or 3 times in a pitch, right, both with Abraham and with Krishnan and their co-founders, there were many times during the pitch, and we don't usually show it, by the way, right? I mean, because, we're thinking to ourselves, oh, wow, that's really interesting insight, about a space. So that's the founder market sort of fit. The second thing we're looking for is this a market that's large enough with enough pain points, right? Where you can build a large business with SMEs, over 50 million small business in Indonesia, virtually no digitization in that, for those businesses, it's pretty clear, right? And they have lots of needs. And what we liked was that Krishnan and Lorenzo had lots of insight about how they were going to solve that. You look at Indonesia, 200 million plus people, GDP per capita is going above $4,000. They're going to spend a lot more money on food brands, right? And Indonesia clearly needs many more food brands. Food tech's really taken off with Gojek and Grab. And so your ability to build quickly high quality food brands is pretty clear. So those are the two things. And then if you've launched, then we look at metrics. It's not important that you've launched, but if you have launched, we look at metrics. And what we're really trying to see is, are there early signs of customer love, right? So I'd say if you're a startup that's already launched, the number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5 question, and quite frankly, the only question you should be asking at seed stage is, do you have customer love? Right? And you can measure it different ways, but retention is probably the most important way you can measure it. It could be ratings, whether it's on Amazon, whether it's on G2, if you're a SaaS company, if you're building an enterprise SaaS company, it's churn. So we look for that, right? And again, we don't expect a seed stage company to have product market fit, but we're looking for early signs of that. And if you don't have it, we're trying to understand, is this a founding team that understands how important it is to have customer love, right? So being able to talk about that, and by the way, those of you that are interested, we ran a whole webinar series, a 4-part webinar series about a month ago. You can go online and maybe Alicia, you can post the links where you can go and actually learn a lot more about this topic of customer love. One more question we'll take before we go to company building. When and how can we apply for the next Surge program? Well, you should apply right now. It's surgeahead.com. Applications are open. We'd love to hear from you, right? Okay, last question from Rob is, we have applied to the upcoming Surge cohort, and since then we have made extensive progress. So absolutely, look, you should let us know or send us your deck. In fact, Alicia, maybe we can let that team know. The question is from Rob Morland. So Rob, you should go ahead and just send us your updated deck, apply to it, or maybe we can give you an email address where you can just write to us directly. We'll take a look at it and we'll get back to you. Okay, so let's now get to the third set of questions that we have, which are on company building, right? What to keep in mind while starting up in a sector with huge opportunity, but a lot of competition. Example, EdTech is being touted as the next big thing, but also means it has a lot of new ventures. How do you balance the hype with value? So how do you keep in, if you're going to set up in a sector that has a lot of competition, how should you be thinking about it? And maybe Krishnan, we'll start with you. In many ways, you're actually going into a blue ocean, right? But if you were, let's say, starting up in a highly competitive space, and you do have a few competitors, obviously, how would you think about it? And what advice would you give founders?
Rajan, my view on this has always been very clear, is be first of all, find out who your initial target segment is, and then make sure that's large enough and start solving the problem for them, right? When you focus obsessively on that, then they start loving you, and then you have a business. You start with that always. Then you obviously have to take a call whether are you going to take a distribution first strategy, or are you going to take hey, I'm going to monetize first. So there are some strategic choices that you need to take, which are sometimes relevant with respect to what competitors do, but without the first thing that I said, which is identifying the clear initial target segment and making sure that's large enough and obsessively solving the problem for them, you probably don't have a business. One last thing I would say is, more often than not, competition is with yourself and the changing market trends. And especially in early stage, it's different. Gojek, Grab, they're big companies and they're very different stage. Early stage, can you be better than what you were last month? Are your customers more happy than last month? If you keep answering this,
Great, thank you. Abraham, do you want to take that? How would you approach it? You've been a serial entrepreneur, you built a company, you sold it, now you're building a second company. How do you think about very competitive markets?
I think that's actually where we are right now. We are in a very hyper-competitive market where everyone sells food. Everyone from moms staying at home all the way to the big quick service restaurant chains like McDonald's, right? I would say that the answer to that is to have very deep customer insight. So from our side, the way we approach this is by trying to identify who the biggest players are in the market. So for example, in our fried chicken business, then the biggest player is KFC, Kentucky Fried Chicken. There's a reason why they're the biggest, which means that they have customer love to a certain extent at least. So we tried understanding what people actually liked about Kentucky Fried Chicken. Then after identifying what they like, and after identifying what they like in general as a customer or what they wish to have, then we decided to design our product so that it would be better from the customer point of view compared to the incumbent champion's product. That's our strategy.
Terrific. Thank you, Abraham. And I think to the points that both Krishnan and Abraham made, please keep in mind that Google was the 9th search engine, right? Facebook was not the first, not the second, not the third, not the 4th social network. Today is the largest social network. Zoom, which we are on today, was actually not the 21st video conferencing product, right? I don't know how many of you were around in the 90s. Most of you may not have been born yet, but man, we had video conferencing even in the 90s. So I think to Krishnan's point and what Abraham just said, figure out who the customer is and is there a real problem to be solved, right? Google became the largest search engine because the 8 search engines before that really didn't solve search, because you did a search and the results were not great. It took a long time and the results more often than not were not correct. So there was a problem to be solved, right? Until Zoom came along, video conferencing was not just click and go, right? Today you can click and go, but what I can tell you is 5 years from now, somebody's going to invent, a video conferencing platform probably that's going to be even better than Zoom. So figure out who the customer is that you're trying to solve for, whether it's a business, whether it's a consumer, and then figure out what problem you're trying to solve, and then obsess about building a solution that just makes them go, wow. Right? It's got to make them go, wow. They've got to love that product. They've got to keep using it. And if you've got that, then, you can pretty much compete in any market. Okay, let's go to the next question. And this is a great question. It's from Varun Gandhi. When did you realize that you found your product market fit? Or are you still in the process? At what part of the journey did you realize that X is going to be your North Star? So maybe on product market fit, and by the way, we talked about this even in our last Surge session 2 weeks ago. Krishnan, maybe you can start. How do you know when you're going to have product market fit, and where are you on that journey?
Yeah. So Surge this was, if you remember, I told you the focus, one thing focus, right? And this was exactly that, what Surge was for us, outside a few other things. For us, early on, we realized that people who are sticking after a very high percentage of people after the first month are sticking with us. So that was fine. But in the first month, we were losing. The early funnel was dropping off a lot. So to answer the question of what did you realize is your North Star, we realized one retention is the North Star, and how that early funnel drop off, right? That became our core focus, and we broke it down further into every week and every day, and how do you optimize for every single thing, right? So that's the answer to that question. The answer to do you have product market fit? I keep debating with Rajan also saying, okay, what is product market fit? Like, when do I know when I have it, right? Like, and sometimes you hear stuff like, you know it when you have it, and then I think maybe we don't have it. So the conclusion I have come as a founder to that is, I guess you never have eventually one single place where you have like, oh, I'm product market fit. Because at every point when this product is working for X set of users, now you want to deepen that engagement with that user and then further make it even more higher, right? And that's clearly happening for us. And then you start looking for the adjacent set of users and then saying, okay, now how do I make these guys as well work? And then eventually at some stage you'll start offering something else and you have to find PMF for that. So I think net what I've come to as a conclusion as a founder is you're always looking for product market fit in every single activity that you're doing for, and you shouldn't think like, oh, I have product market fit, now I go on a vacation. It doesn't work like that. That's my conclusion.
Terrific. Thank you, Krishnan. Abraham, how do you know when you have product market fit, and do you guys have it at Hangry?
Yeah, so I think for us, the answer to that is we have to constantly dig through the, see the truth amid the noise called promo and discounts, right? Because obviously in this business, B2C business, a lot of companies are giving discounts, and we do give discounts too. So for us, what we have to find out is whether or not customers will still buy our product if, let's say, we're selling at the same price with the incumbent player's price. And so for us, it's a process, iterative process of slowly reducing our discount, increasing our prices, and then checking whether or not our demand grows or declines with the reduction in discount and increase in prices. And thankfully for us, the demand remains and keeps on growing. But I guess that's one of the ways that we can recommend, for anyone who's doing B2C to check whether or not we have a product market fit.
Terrific. Thank you, Abraham and Krishnan. I think to the point that both of them made, right? What I would encourage all of you to do, especially if you've already launched, you're a startup, seed stage startup that has launched your product or service, is try to define like what is sort of a way you're going to measure it, right? I think a lot of people will say, as Krishnan said, you know it when you have it. Well, that's really good if you have it, but if you're early, you just launched, you won't have it yet, right? And depending on the category, I think it's reasonably well understood. So for instance, if you're building an SMB SaaS company, it's really churn, right? So if you're building an SMB SaaS company, I'm talking about, let's say you're a US to India cross-border SMB SaaS targeting US SaaS. In India, we've got a lot of those companies. If your monthly churn is like 4%, which means 48% annual churn, you don't have product market fit. Whereas if you have 1 or 2%, 1.5% monthly churn, actually that's pretty good, right? In fact, we just invested in a cross-border SME SaaS company that had 1% monthly churn, which we think is actually pretty much best of breed. Whereas if you're an enterprise SaaS company, even 1% monthly churn is too high, right? It needs to be a lot less than that, right? Whereas if you're, let's say, building a consumer gaming app, right? It's really about month 1, month 2, month 3 retention. And if you have only 3% monthly retention, you don't have product market fit. So what I would say is, depending on the category that you're focusing on, try to define 1 or 2 metrics that will help you get a sense of your North Star on product market fit. But the last thing is, as I say, as Krishnan, is product will always get better, right? Like NPS is a great way to measure it. Some product leaders would say, if you don't have an NPS of more than 40, you don't have product market fit, which means, if 40%, at least 40, 50% of your customers should be deeply disappointed if you took your product away, right? If you ask the question of your customers, be they consumers or businesses, saying what percent, would you be deeply disappointed if you didn't have this product? If only 10% said they'd be deeply disappointed, you certainly don't have product market fit, which means, your customers don't really care if you took the product away. Whereas on the other hand, if 80% of them said they'd be deeply disappointed if you took the product away, clearly, you probably do have product market fit. Okay, so with that, I know we are 3 minutes over. One of the things we do at Surge, we try to start on time and we always try to end on time. So I want to be respectful to all of you, as well as Krishnan and Abraham. Hey, look, so let's maybe go beyond Surge for a minute. I'd love for each of you to, 1 or 2 things that you would, all the founders who are on this Zoom, and probably many, many more that are watching on the live streams on YouTube and Facebook, are building seed stage companies. Give them 1 or 2 pieces of advice. You're also early stage founders, but both of you have actually built companies before. Give them 1 or 2 pieces of advice of what they should focus on, let's say over the next 6 to 12 months as they're trying to build out their companies. Abraham, maybe we'll start with you and then we'll go to Krishnan.
So advice on people that want to start a company, right?
Yeah, no, they've all started companies, but what should they really focus on for the next 12 months? For the next 1 or 2 years, the most important things that you think they should focus on, regardless of what kind of company they're building, right? As founders.
Sure. So I think Rajan has spoken a lot about product market fit, so I'll probably not speak about that. I would say that one advice I can give is how doing a startup is not doing a passion project or just a hobby. I think at the end of the day, it's about company building, and those that those that aspire to build an enduring and lasting company will make the right choices since the beginning. Like, for example, building the right culture, hiring the right people. These are choices that seemingly are marginally not so important compared to selling, let's say, in day one or day two of your company. But in the greater scheme of things, it does really matter. So, and I think from what I've observed, founders that really aspire to build an enduring and lasting companies are the ones that consistently make the right choices in the beginning.
Terrific. Thank you, Abraham. And we can't emphasize that more, right? Every single person that you hire is super important. So never ever compromise on the talent that you hire from the very first day that you start your company, and focus on culture, making sure that you get your culture right. Great. Thank you, Abraham. Krishnan, one or two pieces of advice to our seed stage founders who are on the Zoom?
Yeah, awesome. So to be honest, exactly I was thinking on the hiring point, and not just from the fact that how your company does. Shailendra, actually, one of in the first sessions what he mentioned was, remember you're a sports team, not a family, right? Like, so that is something I think is something very interesting. But that's also not the only reason why. But you should also, I would keep in mind that you want to hustle and fight and do all these different things with these group of people for the next 5-7 years, right? And most importantly, you want to have fun doing it. So make sure that early core group of people you're getting in right, and then every other challenge, be it market size, be it pivoting if required, all of that can be figured out in a fun way with these. So who you work with, that's the fundamental thing. I would, for me, that's what matters. I would do that.
Terrific. Okay, so with that, we're going to wrap this up. Thank you very much, Abraham and Krishnan, for joining us. Also, I wanted to thank Alicia, Devi, Gina, and all the others from the Sequoia team and Surge team who are here to put this together. But most importantly, thank you, founders, to all of you for joining us. Please do give us feedback. As Abraham and Krishnan will tell you, we are obsessed with feedback. Everything we do, we try to get feedback. And if you are building a seed stage company and you're looking for raising your seed round of financing, we'd love to hear from you. Please apply. surgeahead.com. As I said, we're looking for our next cohort of amazing and incredible founders. So thank you for joining us. And Alicia, do you want to talk a little bit about, this is a series that we're going to have. So I do realize we had a large number of questions that came in. So one thing I can commit to you all is, as we have these set of sessions, we are taking questions that all of you have raised. All the questions that we took today, by the way, came from all of you. That you had submitted the questions before the session. So Alicia, maybe you can talk a little bit about what we'll do going forward so we can continue on this Surge Decoded series.
Yes, hi everybody. My name is Alyssa. I'm part of the Surge team along with Rajan and everybody. Thank you so much for coming. Surge Decoded is a commitment from us at Surge to basically answer your questions. We've hosted quite a few number of webinars, and we realize there's a lot of questions coming from your end about the program, the application process, and what it's like. And we really want to try and answer that. So basically what we are committing to is, like, every month we'll be doing like live stream of Surge Decoded. If your question did not get answered this time, don't worry. We're actually keeping track of all of them. We're going to bunch a bunch of them through live stream. So that's a little bit about Surge Decoded. Hope to see you guys in the next one.
Terrific. And I know there were several saying you haven't answered our questions. We know. We got a lot of questions. We only had an hour, but we promise that we will answer your question at the next Decoded session. Okay. Thanks, everyone. Have a good evening.